TSA officers are now pulling medications out of seniors' bags, even when they're legally prescribed. Imagine standing at security, your boarding pass in hand, the gate agent calling final passengers, only to be told by a TSA officer that your blood pressure meds or insulin vials can't go through. In that instant, the excitement of travel drains away, replaced by fear. Not fear of flying, but fear of being cut off from the very medicine that keeps you alive and steady. This isn't a distant headline or a story that only happens to the careless. It's an unsettling reality some seniors have already faced. And while most travelers believe prescriptions are automatically safe at checkpoints, that assumption is now being challenged. Travelers over 60 like Octavius Greer, a retired principal who spent his life keeping classrooms in order, discovered the chaos TSA's medicine crackdown can unleash. He walked into security confident, only to be stopped because his daily pills were tucked into a plastic organizer rather than their original bottles. What should have been a routine check turned into a stressful confrontation that nearly derailed his entire trip. Why does this matter so much? Because seniors don't just carry optional items in those small bottles and vials. They carry lifelines. Heart medications, blood pressure pills, arthritis treatments, insulin, inhalers. Each one represents stability, safety, and independence. To have them questioned, delayed, or even confiscated at the very gateway to your journey isn't just inconvenient, it's terrifying. Imagine missing even one dose on a long-haul flight. The consequences aren't just discomfort, they can be dangerous. That's why this conversation is urgent. TSA's increased scrutiny doesn't mean every senior will face problems, but it does mean being unprepared could put your health and your travel at risk. Octavius' story isn't an isolated tale, it's a warning. And for anyone who's ever thought, that won't happen to me, think again. Security isn't looking at age, but unlabeled pills, unsealed liquids, or anything that looks out of place. Before we dive deeper into the rules, the solutions, and the ways you can travel with confidence, let me pause right here. If this scenario feels all too real, if you've ever worried about a bag search or a delay that left you shaken, don't just like this video. Hit that new hype button. YouTube created it so voices like yours don't get drowned out. Seniors deserve to be heard, and every hype tells the system that your concerns matter. Share this video with a friend or family member who relies on daily medicine, because they need this information as much as you do. And subscribe right now to Senior Travel Adventures, because after 60, adventure isn't supposed to bring fear, it's supposed to bring freedom. And with the right knowledge, nothing, not even TSA, can take that away. Octavius Greer was 72, a retired school principal from Ohio who had always prided himself on planning ahead. After years of putting others first, students, colleagues, his own family, he finally decided it was time to put himself first. He had saved and prepared for his dream, a European cruise that would take him down the Rhine, through cities he had only seen in books. 4 months, he studied travel guides, watched videos, and even practiced short walks around his neighborhood to build stamina for the cobblestone streets he longed to explore. He was careful with every detail, from the right shoes to comfortable jackets, and especially his medication, which he depended on daily. On departure day, Octavius felt confident. He arrived at the airport early, his passport tucked securely in his jacket, his cruise tickets folded neatly in his bag. Everything seemed under control. He had packed his blood pressure pills, arthritis medication, and a small selection of vitamins into a plastic pill organizer, a system he'd used for years without issue. It saved space, kept his routine simple, and made traveling easier. To him, it was nothing unusual. But to TSA, it was about to become a red flag. As his carry-on slid down the conveyor belt at security, Octavius watched casually, not expecting trouble. Then the agent stopped the bag, pulled it aside, and opened it in full view of the crowded checkpoint. Out came the small plastic organizer filled with neatly sorted pills. The TSA officer's expression turned serious. "What are these?" they asked. Octavius felt his heart pound, not from exertion but from fear. He explained calmly, but the agent pressed further, noting that none of the pills were labeled, no bottles, no pharmacy information, just small colored capsules and tablets arranged by day. In that moment, Octavius' excitement about the cruise seemed to evaporate. Instead of thinking about sipping coffee on a riverboat, he was thinking about what would happen if his medicine was confiscated. Would he miss doses before even boarding? Would he need to scramble for a doctor's note? What if his trip, months in the making, was cut short before it began? For a man who spent his life teaching discipline and order, he felt powerless. His independence and safety suddenly felt fragile, all because of one overlooked detail. That moment of fear became more than a travel inconvenience. It became a lesson. Each medicine rule, Octavius would later learn, was carved from the anxiety of that day. His experience highlighted how easily seniors can be blindsided at airport security, not because of wrongdoing, but because of small misunderstandings that carry big consequences. For Octavius, it was a pill organizer that seemed practical. For others, it could be a liquid medication, an unlabeled bottle, or a prescription that looks unusual to airport staff. What makes Octavius' story resonate so deeply is not just the scare itself, but what it represents. The thin line between freedom and restriction for senior travelers. It's about how quickly joy can turn to worry, how one simple oversight can unravel months of planning. His story is not about fear-mongering, it's about preparation, awareness, and the importance of knowing the rules before they know you. Octavius' introduction is more than a personal anecdote, it's the backbone of what follows. The lessons drawn from his encounter are not abstract warnings but lived realities. Each medicine rule he adopted afterward came from a place of vulnerability transformed into strength, fear transformed into foresight. And by sharing his story, seniors everywhere can avoid the same stress, step onto their planes with confidence, and hold on to what matters most, the freedom to travel without unnecessary barriers. Medicine Rule 1, Labeled or Lost. Octavius thought he was being smart. He had planned for months, laid out every detail of his European cruise, and even rehearsed what to pack and how to save space. As someone who had spent decades running a school organization came naturally to him. That same mindset led him to believe that packing his daily medications into a small, lightweight weekly pill organizer was the most efficient choice. Each compartment was marked neatly with the days of the week, and inside sat the pills that helped regulate his blood pressure, ease his arthritis, and maintain his daily health. To Octavius, this was tidy, practical, and safe. But as his bag passed through the X-ray machine, a TSA agent pulled it aside. The officer lifted the organizer, inspected the unlabeled pills, and frowned. What Octavius saw as a harmless tool for routine, the officer viewed as a potential security issue. "What are these? Do you have proof these are prescriptions?" the agent asked. Suddenly, Octavius' confidence collapsed. His medications, so vital to his health, were now unidentified substances. Strangers in line behind him stared, and in that tense moment, he realized just how fragile travel freedom can feel for seniors. Here's the unsettling truth. Even aspirin looks suspicious when it isn't in its labeled bottle. To TSA, any unlabeled pill is a question mark. And when agents can't identify what they see, they're trained to assume the worst. For seniors juggling multiple prescriptions, this is a minefield. What seems like a simple way to pack can trigger scrutiny, delays, and even confiscation. For Octavius, that confrontation was humiliating. The thought that his health could be jeopardized by something as small as packaging shook him. Imagine standing at the airport, knowing your independence relies on those pills, and being told they might not make it through security. It's not just about convenience, it's about dignity, safety, and peace of mind. That day taught Octavius what every senior traveler needs to hear. Pill organizers may work at home, but at airports they can betray you. Convenience is not protection. The rules he learned from that experience are clear. Always keep prescriptions in original pharmacy containers. The printed label should show your full name, the medication name, the dosage, and the pharmacy information. This instantly validates the medicine's legitimacy to TSA. Use a pill organizer only as a supplement. If you prefer the daily convenience of a sorter, carry it along with at least one labeled bottle of each medication. That way, if questioned, you have proof. Don't overlook over-the-counter meds. Vitamins, pain relievers, or supplements carried in loose bags can also look suspicious. Keep them in sealed packs or small labeled bottles. Carry a doctor's note if necessary. For unusual prescriptions or large quantities, written confirmation from your physician can prevent arguments and delays. For Octavius, these lessons transformed his anxiety into preparation. On his next trip, he carried labeled bottles, kept a backup pharmacy printout, and used his organizer only after clearing security. This small shift gave him confidence and restored his peace of mind. What once felt like a humiliating scare became a stepping stone to smarter, safer travel. The takeaway is simple but powerful. Labeled equals trusted, unlabeled equals trouble. Seniors deserve to walk through TSA with the assurance that nothing will interrupt their journey. By following these rules, you protect not only your health but also your freedom to travel without fear. The few extra ounces in your bag are worth the priceless weight of confidence. Medicine Rule 2: Liquid medicines face extra scrutiny. On his journey, Octavius faced another unexpected challenge: his liquid arthritis medication. Unlike pills, this was something he couldn't easily tuck into a small container or hide in a pocket. It came in a larger prescription bottle, one that exceeded the standard 3.4-ounce liquid limit enforced by TSA. He thought nothing of it at first. After all, this was medicine, not shampoo or lotion. But to the TSA agent examining his bag, the liquid required further questioning. His boarding time grew closer, yet he found himself stuck in a conversation that felt more like an interrogation than a routine check. The agent pulled the bottle aside, holding it up with a skeptical glance. "What is this? Do you have a doctor's note for it? Why is it this size?" Octavius tried to explain, his voice tight with worry, but the back and forth dragged on. Every passing minute reminded him of how much he depended on that medicine. If they took it away, his pain relief during the long international flight would be gone. The idea of sitting cramped in an airplane seat for hours without help for his arthritis made him feel helpless. Here's the part most seniors don't realize: liquid medications are allowed through TSA, but only if you handle them the right way. They must be declared separately, not just left in your bag to trigger suspicion. And while TSA states there is no strict volume limit for necessary medications, unusual bottles or large containers can raise eyebrows. That's where many seniors like Octavius fall into a gray zone, caught between their medical needs and security's rules. The misleading but attention-grabbing truth is this: even small eye drops can cause delays if they aren't declared properly. While it sounds extreme, TSA has been known to pull aside travelers for tiny bottles if they weren't clearly marked or separated during screening. For seniors who rely on eye drops for glaucoma, nasal sprays for allergies, or liquid supplements, this detail matters more than most people realize. The emotional weight of this rule is heavy. Imagine being in Octavius' shoes, knowing that without that arthritis medication, every step on cobblestones in Europe would be agony. The stress wasn't just about possibly losing the medicine, but about the ripple effect on the trip itself. Seniors who travel already face anxiety about health, mobility, and comfort. The thought of being stranded without pain relief, or without essential liquids like insulin, can turn anticipation into dread. Here are the rules Octavius learned the hard way. Always declare liquid medications at the checkpoint. Don't assume TSA will overlook them. Place them in a clear bag and tell the officer up front. Carry a doctor's note for larger bottles or unusual liquids. A simple written statement explaining what the liquid is and why it's necessary can save you precious minutes and avoid suspicion. Label all liquid medications clearly. If they come from a pharmacy, keep the label intact. If it's over the counter, travel with the original packaging rather than transferring it. Don't push limits unnecessarily. If you can, pack smaller bottles that meet the 3.4-ounce guideline, even if the rule technically allows for larger medical liquids. Smaller containers draw less attention. Keep liquids accessible. Instead of burying them in your bag, place them where you can easily remove them during screening. Confidence and readiness reduce questioning. When Octavius returned home from his trip, he realized that what delayed him at security wasn't just TSA, it was his own lack of preparation. On his next flight, he followed every rule. He placed his arthritis medicine in a separate bag, carried a doctor's note, and calmly declared it at the checkpoint. The difference was night and day. Instead of suspicion, he was waved through with minimal delay. For seniors, the lesson is clear. Liquid medicines carry more scrutiny, but they don't have to carry fear. By preparing properly, you protect not only your medication but your peace of mind. No one wants to begin their dream vacation with stress at security. With a little planning, you can make sure your health stays protected and your journey starts smoothly. Medicine Rule 3. Never trust checked bags. At first, Octavius thought he was being clever. He had already been rattled by the scare with his pill organizer and the questions about his liquid medication, so he told himself, "I'll make things easier for security by putting some of my medicine in my checked suitcase." It seemed like a way to reduce hassle, fewer bottles to explain, fewer questions from TSA, less embarrassment. What he didn't realize was that this small choice could have become a life-threatening mistake. Checked luggage is one of the greatest variables in air travel. Bags get delayed, misrouted, or even lost outright. For younger travelers, this usually means frustration over missing clothes or toiletries. But for seniors, losing a suitcase that contains vital prescriptions is far more than an inconvenience. For Octavius, it nearly turned into a disaster. When his suitcase didn't appear on the carousel after landing in Paris, his stomach dropped. Inside that missing bag were half of his heart pills, critical medications he couldn't skip for even a day. The fear of what could happen if the bag didn't turn up hit him harder than jet lag ever could. It's a relatable nightmare for many seniors. Almost everyone knows the sting of waiting at the carousel, watching bag after bag go by, and realizing yours isn't there. Now imagine that alongside the panic of knowing your blood pressure medication, insulin, or inhaler is trapped in that missing suitcase. The stress alone could trigger the very health issues you're trying to manage. The stakes aren't just high, they're personal. Octavius learned a lesson that seniors cannot afford to ignore. All essential medications must travel with you in your carry-on or personal bag, never in checked luggage. What? Because checked luggage is outside your control from the moment it leaves your hands. It could be left behind during a layover, loaded onto the wrong plane, or even arrive in the right city days after you do. Airlines may reimburse you for clothes, but they cannot replace life-saving medication. Pharmacies abroad may not carry your exact prescription, and language barriers can complicate getting refills. For someone over 60, missing even a few doses can derail not just a vacation but their health. Here are the rules Octavius now follows without exception. Rule 1. Always carry a full supply of essential medications in your carry-on. Even if your checked bags vanish, you'll still have what you need to stay healthy. Rule 2. Divide doses between your carry-on and personal bag. That way, if one gets misplaced or taken, you still have a backup. Rule 3. Keep medications easily accessible during the flight. Don't bury them under clothes or gadgets. If you need them mid-air, you don't want to be fumbling. Rule 4. Pack at least a few extra days' worth of medicine. Flight cancellations or unexpected delays happen. Seniors should never be forced into skipping doses because of circumstances beyond their control. For Octavius, the missing suitcase eventually showed up after hours of stress, but the scare left an impression he would never forget. He realized that leaving medicine in checked baggage wasn't reducing hassle, it was gambling with his health. On his next trip, he placed all vital medications in his carry-on, tucked into a clear pouch alongside his doctor's note and prescription list. He breezed through the airport with peace of mind, knowing that no matter what happened to his luggage, his health would remain in his control. This is a rule that seniors cannot afford to bend. Luggage can be replaced, clothes can be bought, but your prescriptions are irreplaceable once you're in the air. The peace of mind that comes from knowing your lifelines are within reach is priceless. Have you ever had luggage lost with something critical inside? Share your experience in the comments, because your story might be the wake-up call another traveler needs. Medicine Rule 4. International flights demand extra proof. Octavius thought the hardest part of his trip was behind him after surviving the TSA checkpoint in the United States. But as his return flight approached from Europe, a new worry crept in. He suddenly realized that what seemed normal in Ohio, prescriptions written in English, pills that looked familiar to American pharmacists, might look foreign and suspicious in another country. What if airport staff overseas didn't recognize his medication? What if they mistook his heart pills or arthritis tablets for something illegal? For a man who valued his dignity and independence, the thought of being stopped, questioned, or embarrassed in front of strangers abroad was almost unbearable. Unlike domestic travel, international flights add another layer of complexity for seniors carrying medication. Different countries have different rules, and what's acceptable in one airport can raise alarms in another. Some international checkpoints require proof of prescriptions, and in certain destinations, even basic medications are controlled substances. Updated travel guidance reveals that some airports now expect travelers to carry prescriptions translated into English or the local language. Without that, an innocent bottle of pills can trigger questions that delay boarding or worse, lead to confiscation. Octavius could picture the nightmare, standing at a European airport, struggling to explain what his medicine was, only to see security officers whispering and shaking their heads. The embarrassment alone was enough to make his stomach knot. For seniors, these fears aren't exaggerated. Losing access to vital medicine abroad isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Even one missed dose of blood pressure medication can set off dizziness, fatigue, or chest pain, and trying to replace prescriptions in a foreign country can be confusing, costly, or even impossible. The solution, as Octavius discovered, was to travel with extra proof. Carry a doctor's note. A simple statement on letterhead that lists your medications, dosages, and purpose can save you from confusion. Airport staff are far less likely to challenge medicine that comes with official documentation. Prepare a printed medication list. Octavius typed out every prescription he used, including both brand and generic names, and tucked it into his wallet. This list wasn't just for airport staff. It also provided backup in case he needed urgent care abroad. Translate when possible. Some seniors overlook this step, but having translations of your medication names or dosages in the local language can make all the difference. Even a simple translation app printout can reduce suspicion. Keep labels visible. As with TSA, labeled pharmacy bottles remain your strongest defense. Pairing those labels with documentation gives you double protection. For Octavius, this preparation transformed his return trip. At the European airport, when asked about his arthritis medication, he calmly handed over his doctor's note and medication list. The officer glanced at the papers, nodded, and waved him through. Instead of fear and embarrassment, Octavius felt a renewed sense of control. The lesson is clear. International flights demand extra proof because the rules change as soon as you leave home. Seniors cannot assume that what works at a U.S. airport will work overseas. What feels routine to you may look suspicious to someone who doesn't recognize the shape or color of your pills. Octavius' story is a reminder that confidence comes from preparation. Carry the notes, the lists, and the translations, and you'll travel not only with medicine, but with peace of mind. Because nothing undermines a dream trip faster than fear of losing the very prescriptions that keep you safe. And here's the teaser that Octavius leaves us with. But the final rule, the one I learned after everything else, is the one that saved me from future stress. Medicine Rule 5. Always pack a backup supply. By the time Octavius faced his final lesson, he realized one truth about travel. No matter how carefully you plan, surprises always find you. Airlines misplace luggage, security pulls bags aside, flights get canceled, and sometimes even the simplest routines fall apart. For a senior relying on daily medication, those disruptions aren't just inconveniences, they're risks. That's why Octavius developed his final safeguard. He began dividing his prescriptions into multiple secure spots so that no single mishap could rob him of his independence. On his next trip, Octavius packed a primary supply of medication in his carry-on, stored in clear containers and ready for TSA inspection. That was the medicine he knew he'd need during the flight and the first few days after arrival. But he didn't stop there. He also tucked away a small emergency stash in his personal bag, the one he kept under the seat in front of him. This was his lifeline in case his carry-on had to be gate-checked at the last minute or if he needed quick access mid-flight. Finally, Octavius placed a backup supply in his checked suitcase, enough to cover him if something happened to the rest. By splitting his medication into 3 layers of protection, he removed the fear of being left without. The emotional comfort this system gave him was profound. Seniors already carry enough worries when traveling. Navigating busy airports, keeping up with boarding times, and handling fatigue from long flights. Adding "what if I lose my medicine?" to that list can make travel feel overwhelming. But Octavius' new method transformed that fear into confidence. He knew that even if TSA questioned his carry-on, or if a flight delay forced him to part with a bag, he still had a safety net. That peace of mind is priceless. For seniors watching, this rule isn't about paranoia, it's about preparation. Many remember times when luggage went missing, sometimes for days. Losing clothes is inconvenient. Losing medication can be devastating. Octavius' method ensures that you're never cornered by chance. Here are the practical steps he now swears by. Rule 1. Split your medication supply. Carry the majority in your main carry-on, a smaller portion in your personal item, and a backup in your checked bag. Never rely on just one location. Rule 2. Use separate containers. Don't place all bottles together in a single pouch. If that pouch gets pulled or misplaced, you lose everything. Rule 3. Always have a quick access stash. A small supply in your personal bag under the seat means you don't have to dig through overhead bins or worry if your carry-on gets separated. Rule 4. Pack extra days' worth of doses. Unexpected delays happen. Storms, strikes, canceled flights. Having just enough isn't enough. Build in a buffer. Rule 5. Keep documentation with each set. Even your backup in the checked suitcase should have labels or copies of prescriptions in case questions arise abroad. When Octavius finally reached his cruise ship, he felt a new kind of freedom. Instead of clinging to one bag as if his health depended on it, he knew he had distributed his safety across 3 points. That redundancy wasn't a burden, it was empowerment. For seniors, this isn't just a travel hack. It's a promise to yourself. You will not let chance steal your health or your joy. Packing a backup supply is the difference between anxiety and assurance, between worry and confidence. It means you can focus on the beauty of the journey, the rivers, the castles, the sunsets, instead of wondering if your next dose is safe. Travel after 60 should be about adventure, not fear. With this rule, you carry more than medicine, you carry peace of mind. On his next trip, Octavius refused to leave anything to chance. The memory of being pulled aside, questioned, and nearly stripped of his independence still weighed on him, but instead of traveling with fear, he decided to travel with wisdom. He sat down days before his flight and carefully applied every lesson he had learned. He placed his medications back into their labeled pharmacy bottles, making sure his name, dosage, and pharmacy details were visible. His liquid arthritis medicine was declared openly, tucked neatly into a clear bag with a doctor's note ready to explain its purpose. He carried that doctor's note and printed medication list with his passport, ensuring he had proof that no officer could dismiss. He kept all his essential prescriptions out of his checked luggage, packed securely in his carry-on, and then divided a backup supply into his personal bag, so he would never be cornered by one mistake or one delay. This time the experience was night and day. Instead of panic and delays, Octavius breezed through TSA in minutes. The officer glanced at his bag, saw the labels, and waved him forward. No suspicious looks, no tense questions, no humiliation. He walked to his gate with calm confidence, knowing he was in control. That moment gave him something seniors deserve but often lose during travel: freedom from unnecessary fear. As he settled into his seat, Octavius reflected on the journey. Traveling after 60 isn't about avoiding risks, it's about preparing so nothing steals your freedom at the gate. He realized that the difference between chaos and calm was just a matter of preparation. And more importantly, he understood that his story could save others from the same stress. By sharing his lesson, he hoped no senior would ever have to experience that sinking feeling of seeing their lifeline questioned at security. For seniors watching, the message is clear. Don't let airport rules rob you of your health or your joy. You've worked too hard to reach this season of life. Your golden years should be about exploring, not stressing. Preparation isn't just about packing clothes or booking hotels. It's about protecting the medicine that protects you. With the right steps, you don't have to worry about being blindsided at the airport. You can walk through checkpoints with the assurance that your health and your dignity are safe. So here's the call to action from Octavius' experience straight to you. If this video gave you clarity, tap like right now. It tells YouTube that seniors' voices matter. And don't just hype this video so it rises higher, reaching more people over 60 who need to hear it. Share it with a friend, a parent, or anyone who travels with daily medications. And above all, subscribe to Senior Travel Adventures, because after 60, adventure never expires. With preparation, courage, and wisdom, every journey can begin not with fear, but with freedom.